Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Tuesday, January 8th, 2018. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and on today's podcast, I'm going to take you to the set of Marvel Studios' latest film, Captain Marvel, and we're going to play some of the interviews that I, along with other journalists, conducted on set. Those interviews include Samuel L. Jackson, who reprises his role as Nick Fury, Ben Mendelsohn, who plays a Skrull in the new film, executive producer Jonathan Schwartz, but let's start things off with Samuel L. Jackson, who, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I've interviewed Sam a bunch of different times, and he kind of gets some joy from his no fucks giving attitude. As you'll see here, he really likes to challenge reporters with dismissive responses. I think he gets kind of a kick out of it, and it's kind of fun. My favorite part of this interview is one of the journalists on set, I think it was Perry from Collider, asked Sam if he could talk a little bit about what it means to him to play a big supporting role in the first female-led Marvel superhero film. And Sam, you'll see, gives this kind of dismissive response. And you'll see this is kind of the game that Sam plays, because Perry kind of, goes to bat and challenges him. And I think we actually get the best answer out of that confrontation. I love talking to Sam Jackson, and I think you'll enjoy this interview.
I don't have to do this shit again. When it's time for the movie to come out, I better not see none of these motherfuckers.
You want to trace them?
Hi.
All right.
Sorry to see your disintegration. It's good to see you back in action here.
That it?
Well, you have
Made the buzzer go off now.
you have some dots and stuff on your face. You got an injury of some kind. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to join the Wakanda tribe, and this is my initiation rite.
How's it going?
I don't know, pretty cool. I haven't been spanked by anybody yet, but the hazing is pretty tough. It's okay.
When you first played Nick Fury, did you ever think you'd get to explore his backstory like you are in this one, and what is that like for you?
No.
Have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed getting to explore the character's origins a little bit more?
Yeah, we always do. We always look forward to figuring out stuff that people don't know or might not understand, or the evolution of Nick Fury from desk jockey to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah. It's kind of fun.
From what we just learned about the character in this film, it sounds like he's kind of in he doesn't know his place in the world. Like the Cold War is over, haven't reached the...
Totally knows his place in the world.
Oh, he does? Okay.
Yeah.
What's his place
job
in the world?
right now, his place in the world is to find out where the next enemy is coming from. And like most sane human beings with a job like that, you figure the next enemy is some other country or somewhere else. And all of a sudden he discovers something that we speculate about, and now we know he knows it's true, that there are other beings in the universe, not just us. And next problem will be convincing everybody else that's true.
What is the aspect of Nick, that's the most different from
He's younger.
The one that we've seen? What's the age?
Yeah, about 30 years younger. And not as jaded about the world yet. He hadn't grown into his cynicism quite yet.
How would you describe Fury's relationship with Carol?
Like most people, you meet somebody, you theoretically surmise that they're from outer space. And I guess like most of us, the first thing you think about is the difference. And she looks like us, yes, but she also showed up with these things that can shapeshift. So is she what she appears to be? Is she a safe individual? Is she a dangerous individual? All those things come to mind. Spending time with her, he discovers things about her that, lead him to believe that, she is something other than what she is presented herself to be or even knows herself to be. So during the course of interacting with her, they do become compatriots. They have a shared sense of humor. He's open to the difference in what she may be and what she may not be, and he's definitely willing to help her explore what she needs to find out who she is and what and how she came to be.
And speaking of relationships, you know,
the alpha person. Go ahead.
Does anyone else, my apologies. Someone else
go ahead.
wanna?
No, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay. I was just going to ask, what's the most enjoyable part of playing Nick at this stage in his life as opposed to when we've always seen him? So what was the thing you found most enjoyable about discovering him?
Payday.
Okay.
Yeah. Payday's nice. Most enjoyable thing about him, I guess, like I said, he's not burdened by the weight of the world the way he is, and he hadn't come to resent the powers that be in terms of how they view the world and how they view what he does and the seriousness of the situation. They're totally unaware of it right now. So his next challenge is convincing them that, you know, we do need to enlist people who have extraordinary gifts that can help us defend not just the country, but, you know, the world.
When you were first cast as Nick Fury, it was like a groundbreaking moment, and there was some controversy with certain people, you know, being mad about Nick Fury being changed to an African American.
Who are you talking about?
Well, I mean, people were, you know, there was definitely some, like, people were upset because they were used to the old school Nick Fury. But now it's like 10 years on, and you pretty much own the role for all time. So do you
had more chances than they did. That's one thing. I don't know. When I was in Golden Apple one day, and I saw the Ultimates cover, and I realized it was my image. And so I called my manager immediately. Said, "Who did I get permission to use my image for a comic book, or did you guys do it and didn't tell me? Were you trying to surprise me? Or what are you talking about?" And they made a call, and to the Marvel people at that time, and they said, "Well, like it says inside the comic book, the characters are talking, and one of the characters goes, so if they make a movie about us, who would you want to play you?" Nick Fury said Samuel L. Jackson. And I'm like, yes. And Mark Miller, being Mark Miller, did that. And he did the same thing in Kingsman. Yeah. So we have a pretty good relationship these days. You take a job and you hope you can inhabit a character in a specific way that creates excitement for people who are sitting there watching it, and that there's something about that character that's memorable that they can take away, or, if it's a real fan, something they want to emulate, or that you have actually done something that makes that character more real and more enjoyable, and you do want to see more of him. So, you hold back little pieces of what's going on in terms of especially his thought process and where he's going and what he's trying to accomplish in terms of making sure that he is the patriot that he says he is, and that we know him to be, and that he has a greater sense of the world's safety and humanity in terms of all people are equal and as important, and every culture needs to be defended, not just ours. And I think, I tried to find a way to make him that citizen of the world and not just the United States. And I think it resonates with a lot of people.
The character of Nick Fury has proven to be a fan favorite of the MCU. So why do you owe that?
Yeah, they missed me a little bit in there. I've been in like the last 6 movies. Sent me on a road trip and didn't let me come home.
So why do you owe that popularity?
What do I owe that popularity? A lot of other movies. You sort of earn a reputation for being able to embody specific characters in specific ways. And I do a lot of movies that are kind of gun movies or action movies because I loved them when I was growing up, and to have an opportunity to do them now is like perfect for me. So I tend to sometimes just choose movies because they're movies I would have gone to see when I was a kid or when I was young. There's really no other reason to do Snakes on a Plane. But it was fun. And I try and have fun. I mean, work for me. I mean, acting's always been fun. And I think because I was a stutterer and was, halfway shy when I was a kid, being able to be on stage when I first discovered it through my aunt, who was a performing arts teacher in Chattanooga. She always was in charge of pageants and plays because she was a performing arts major at North Carolina A&T. And she never had enough boys, and I lived in the house with her. So whenever she did something, I had to do it. And the discovery of that and, people pinching you on the cheek, oh my God, you're so good. You're so wonderful. Made you go, wow, okay. That's something I can do, and I feel very good about myself when I do it. So I started at a very young age. I got away from it for a while, but I still performed because I was in a marching band, a very good marching band and a concert band. And then when I got back to college, I rediscovered theater. When I was in high school, they wouldn't let me do all the plays. They said, you got to let somebody else do it. So, nobody else is volunteering. I'm here. But they go out and recruit people anyway. So it's part and parcel of that. The adulation, the joy of me being there. It's a really wonderful way to make believe. I was an only child, so I spent a lot of time reading and being in my own head and exploring worlds the way I wanted to explore them, or exploring stories the way I wanted to explore them. And my grandfather told me stories, and he would make me tell him stories. So we shared made-up stories on the porch at night, and we did that. So, and listened to a lot of radio drama. So I learned to use my voice and inflection and whispering, vocalizations, come to me easily now because I listen to people like Andy Griffith and The Shadow and Sergeant Preston Yukon. It's just crazy radio stuff. I listen to Andy. So coming to work for me is a real joy. I don't care about the 5 o'clock call. I get up at 5 o'clock. When I'm not working, I get up at 5 o'clock anyway, so I can go to the golf course, so I won't get out of the habit of getting up at 5 o'clock. So I continue to do that. And it's a joyous place for me to be, to come and forget about who I am, what's going on in my house, what's going on in the world. I can't listen to the news every day, so to come here and to go into a world that has its own rules and to create a character that doesn't know anything about any of that is a wonderful escape for me, and helps keep me sane.
Can you talk a little bit about what it means to you to be such a big supporting role in the first female-led Marvel superhero movie?
No. Does that mean something?
I would certainly say it does to me.
Let me think about that. I hadn't thought of it that way. I thought I was the star of this movie. I have a daughter, and I have a wife who feels undervalued because she is a black woman. She is in this business, and she's been in this business longer than I have. She was a professional actor when she was a kid and doing all this stuff. And she's a specific body type and a specific skin tone, which is not the preferred skin tone of this business, basically. I mean, Viola Davis is the biggest dark-skinned star, and being able to uplift women in a very specific way. I grew up in a house full of women who always, made me feel special and made me toe a specific line. I understand a lot about who they are and what they felt just because I heard it, and I had to experience it every day. How hard the world is for women specifically, And I guess as I got older, because my world was specifically black and white when I grew up, because I grew up in segregation. So I didn't talk to white women because I didn't know any. So I only talked to black women, so I knew what their worldview was and what it meant. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that, you know, white women might be as beat down as we were in a specific way. And to work with Bree, who has a very political, aware sense of self, who's not afraid to use her platform to push female agendas, has been a real joy. This is my third movie with her. I did Kong with her, so we went all over the world, and then I did her movie, Unicorn Store. And to be a part of this specific story, where she has such an enormous responsibility, especially in the success of the Marvel Universe and what it means every time there's a Marvel film. And to look at what happened last year with Wonder Woman. You know, DC almost figured it out with that movie. To know what's going to happen when this movie does actually hit theaters for women and little girls is going to be amazing. Just because of who she is and what her understanding of her responsibility to not the male audience, but the female audience that's coming to this film. To be able to be alongside her, support her, and to give her what she needs to be this strong character questing for self-identity, number one. And once she realizes what her power is and how she wields it, it's been a real honor for me, you know, because I want Bree to succeed in a very real and very strong way. And to have the opportunity to come into this particular place where they actually know how to do this, they figured it out. There's a Marvel playbook that works. You know, I mean, as out of the box as people think Black Panther was, it's part of Marvel playbook. It just happens to have black people in it. And this is a Marvel movie being made through the Marvel playbook, and it just happens to be a strong female character in it. And it will hopefully incite people the way Black Panther incited us racially when we saw it, you know. So I'm really proud to be part of it.
Guys, we have time for one last question. What has been your impression of what Bree has done with the role in terms of like the physical demands that it's entailed? This is, you know, new territory for her.
Physical demands? Woo. Let me see. When was it? I think about a year ago, Bree started working out. And the girl that I did Kong and Unicorn Store with is not this person. She's like 5% body fat now. And she used to send me workout videos, which were like crazy dope workout videos. But she was, the first one she sent me, she was lifting, what was she lifting, like 100 pounds. She was doing this thing with a waist lift, about 100 pounds. The last one she sent me was 350. And, you know, she does chin-ups, and she sent me a video of her pushing a Jeep up a hill. You know, it's pretty amazing stuff. So she's made a distinct transformation that, you know, I don't think a lot of people would be willing to do, and it's a huge commitment to do stuff like that. When I was doing Tarzan with Alexander, well, he would come to work at like 4 in the morning and go work out, and then he would eat, and then he would do his cardio, and then we would start to shoot. And every time they said cut, somebody was putting a weight in his hand. He was doing curls, and he was doing push-ups. You know, Bree's sort of like that, you know, at this point in her development, that she can actually do all that stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Let me see. No, that's the Jeep.
Go, keep going. Go.
See, that's her pushing the Jeep up a hill.
Keep going, right there. got it. It's moving. Let's go. Let's go. Keep it.
Wow.
Go. Keep going. Keep going. Foot. One foot right there. Good. Come on. Keep going.
Nuts.
That's
Don't stop.
That's
crazy. You got the momentum.
Holy
Here we go.
crap.
Killing it.
Go.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
Had to find a better one.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Was she trying to encourage you to like push it?
No, I have an age limit. I'm done with all that. I go to Pilates. I only push my body weight. I don't mess with any other weights. None. There we go. Over there.
Whoa.
Wow. You got it going on. So, yeah, I'm impressed with what she did.
Amazing texture.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Enjoy your stay here today.
Good luck with the rest of it.
Thank you. Don't lose an eye.
Marvel is notoriously secretive about their projects, and the cast and crew are very tight-lipped about any film in production. And before visiting a Marvel set, you actually get this S.H.I.E.L.D.-style Marvel security experience where they make you sign a bunch of NDAs and they take your photo and they document that all. And despite being a journalist, agreeing to an embargo, and signing these NDAs, no one on set knows what they can and cannot say, or they're very, hesitant to reveal anything. And sometimes, as I talked about in the past on this podcast, that can be frustrating when you're trying to interview someone about a project and they can't say anything about it. Other times it turns hilarious. And as for the case of our talk with Ben Mendelsohn, who plays a Skrull, he showed up in full Skrull makeup. And he plays a Skrull in the film, the main antagonist as far as we can tell. And the interview was hilarious. Maybe not a lot of information dealt out here, but I think you will enjoy this interview with Ben Mendelsohn.
So you look completely unrecognizable. What is this process?
Wow.
This is amazing.
It takes a couple of hours. It's not too exorbitant. No, a few hours.
Okay, so can you tell us, what's your character's name? What's their role in the movie?
Yeah.
I'm Talos. I'm the kind of battle commander of the Skrulls. Now, I'm going to take it most of you know who Skrulls are. We kind of rule this shit. Most of the rest of the Marvel comic universe are punks, basically. And, I guess to quote Snoop Dogg, we are the shiznit, and we stand above most. I mean, look, we could be anyone, right? And we're stronger than the rest of them. I mean, basically that's it. Yeah, we're maligned, we're misunderstood, but we're Skrulls. We're Skrulls. Any other questions?
Well, that does bring up a good question. Like, what are the Skrulls out for? Like, what is the...
What are they out for?
Yeah.
What is their raison d'etre?
Yeah.
Oh, like most people, they just want a place, to call their own, and just be able to chill, but these other types getting in the way all the time, messing with us,
Were there any specific comic runs you read to sort of understand more about the Skrulls?
Without wanting to get too, meta with the whole sort of Marvel publicity thing, they do have a really good app, so you can cop on to any of them. No, I started at the start because I wanted to see us when we were scummy little amphibious kind of tadpole scum, and see how we rose and became reimagined until this point where I could stand at the zenith of Skrull creation. But, we have a peek at this and we have a peek at that, but I can't tell you about that without showing you my petticoat. You know what I mean? And I don't want to show you the petticoat.
But why?
I'm still shy.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I get that.
Has your character been deeply embedded and in disguise for quite a while, or?
He's quite active, so he has to switch in and out of some various stuff. So, I'm going to assume we're going to see Talos, do his thing. And look, the thing about Skrulls and changing shapes, and I can say this with some authority, right? While physiologically any Skrull can change shape, it takes practice and, dare I say it, talent to do it well. And, he's like a battle commander because he does it well.
Have you seen the visuals of the actual transition? Do you know exactly the process?
No, I've participated in the transition, but I haven't seen what they'll end up doing with it. I think it'll be pretty funky, but but no, I'm not privy to that. I just have to stand on the.
How does the character change when you go from human form to a full Skrull?
Well, I think picking up on that point, I don't quite know yet how that will manifest. I know we've tried a couple.
I mean, personality-wise, how is he?
Oh well, look. See, the thing about him is, we know basically who you are for the last X amount of time, right? So, you want to think it's a pretty good carbon copy of what's going on with, human, I got you behind this. So it's kind of like, you might think of it like a chameleon kind of trapdoor spider or one of those spiders that just hangs there looking useless. But, doesn't look like a spider. You know what I mean? I think so. But knows that you're coming. You're coming. Yeah, you're coming closer. You're coming closer. I'm very gentle. I'm very meek. That kind of vibe.
Does he have a specific relationship with Carol?
Well, they're in the same movie.
Sure. How do you feel about Thanos stealing your chin?
Yeah, look, I was very, I was very upset with that. Basically, I consider Thanos to be a punk. I mean, clearly, clearly he's looked at us Skrulls and he's been like, you know what? I want to look more like that whole chin thing. Yeah, he totally bit my style with the chin. I mean, he's gone for the blue hues and all that, but he ain't fooling no one, like you said. I mean, that is clearly he's Skrulling. There's no other word for it. I think I better go while it's good, right? Before I start hitting duds out here.
Can you talk about the war with the Kree?
Well, they're punks. I don't know what to say. I mean, the Kree are filth, and that's just all there is to it. I mean, you know what? I don't know what to say. Kree, please. I mean, look, we're gonna. There's going to be some problems. What can I say? They're Kree.
Do you see an end to the Kree Skrull War? Because it's been going on for such a long time. Can you foresee an end?
Yeah, I mean, if they step off, then that's good. Then it's done. But they don't seem to want to step off. And so we'd be scrolling.
Please tell me you said that in the movie.
I can tell you that we'd be trying.
You had the opportunity to work with Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck previously on Mississippi Grind.
Indeed.
I imagine this has been a completely different experience. I mean, is there any DNA shared?
Well, not so much between the projects, but I think with us there is a continuing kind of a DNA. There's a relationship that we formed on that film, which kind of carries on in the nucleus in a lot the same way, although, what we're trying to do here is quite a bit different and, a lot more Skrulling than gambling. But no, we got our thing going on.
Yeah. Is it nice just having that experience, given everything physically?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think for me it was a very easy. Yes, I would have worked with Anna and Ryan on any number of propositions, but Skrulling. It's kind of. I mean, it's awesome, and it's very, very different. It's very different. What we're trying to do is very different, and. It feels good out there. It feels good out there.
What can you say about how your character crosses paths with Carol? And
not a lot.
Why does he set his sights on her?
You can't say a lot, or
I can't tell you a lot without 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 giving the game away. But it's fair to say that Carol's pretty good, let me put it another way. Captain Marvel is pretty good, Carol, it's sort of like the life of Pablo, the life of Carol. Like, which one? Which one is she going to be? Is she going to be Carol Danvers, or is she going to be Captain Marvel? Now, if she's Carol Danvers, then yeah, she got some stuff that can be, I mean, we're good at getting inside of people. That's my big clue. That's my big goof. Oh, look, now I'm going to get pulled.
Sorry,
there you go.
I changed everything around, but so this has to be the last question, unfortunately.
Yeah, see? You got the scoop. You got the scoop.
So, right there, boom, she called it.
Last question.
Yeah, you got one more.
What's your level of action, like physical action, like?
Oh, it's intense. Like, yes. A lot of punching, a lot of kicking, scrolling. I'm out.
Thank you.
So that was Ben Mendelsohn dropping the mic, if you will. And next up, we have our final interview. This is an interview with Captain Marvel executive producer Jonathan Schwartz. You probably don't know Jonathan Schwartz. And walking on the set of any Marvel movie, you might not even notice him. He's the smart guy in the corner wearing glasses. But he's really one of the modern architects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You might know that producer Kevin Feige started out as an assistant to X-Men producer Lauren Schuler Donner, and Schwartz began his career in a similar way as an assistant to Feige on Iron Man 2. He quickly proved himself valuable, and he moved his way up the ladder. He became a producer, an associate producer on Guardians of the Galaxy, an executive producer on the sequel, and Captain Marvel is his baby. You can tell that this guy is the smartest guy in the room. He has inherited Feige's playful tease. And in this interview, Schwartz talked for almost 50 minutes. So if you want any information about Captain Marvel or the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is a must listen, and I hope you enjoy it.
There's a little bit of art behind you, which sort of helps walk through the movie a little bit. You may have heard a little bit about how this movie is somewhat different structurally than some of our other origin stories, which is something we were sort of consciously trying to execute. And the movie starts with the Captain Marvel character kind of already in outer space, already having superpowers, and already kind of fighting on the side of the Kree in the Kree Skrull War against those Skrulls. And so you sort of get a little glimpse of her squad there, Star Force, which is led by a Jude Law character. Very quickly along this journey, they get dispatched on a mission to an alien planet to fight the Skrulls. And over the course of that mission, Brie Larson's character gets captured by the Skrulls. And it's kind of over the course of that adventure, she finds herself on Earth, crashes into the roof of a Blockbuster Video, because it's the 90s. And that kind of puts her in contact with a younger, two-eyed version of Agent Fury, and the two of them together kind of have to stop the Skrull plot on Earth. And at the same time, get to the root of Carol's past. That's more or less the bones of the movie. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions and stuff. What's most useful for you now?
I suppose the first big question is when we first saw the costume that it was black and green, not the usual blue, gold, and red. So what's that about?
I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you the blue, gold, red costume is going to be in the movie. The green costume is kind of more of the Kree colors, the Kree Star Force colors. You can see a little of there. Over the course of the movie, that costume will have a little bit of a second evolution.
And there's a plot reason or personal reason to her to why it changes?
There definitely will be.
Okay. So what can we expect as far as kind of what's going to be set in space versus Earth?
In terms of Earth versus space?
Yeah. Kind of the ratio.
It's more or less 50-50. The movie starts in space, gets to Earth relatively quickly, and then goes back to space for kind of some of the third act. Okay. So it's kind of space, Earth, space. There is a big Earth plot that ends up tying into a lot of our more cosmic goings-on.
As far as the scenes where she's at the Air Force Base, is that before she gets into space?
Yes. So that's kind of Carol's past as an Air Force pilot, which takes place before she starts fighting for the Kree and before she gets into outer space.
But that's Act 2 of the movie, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, it comes after the space stuff. One of the challenges with kind of subverting that origin structure is you've still got to find a way to let the audience understand who that character is, and there's some creative ways over the course of this movie where we're able to get that part of Carol's story across.
Is it linear?
It is and it isn't. I don't want to get into that too much because there's a few cool surprises along the way. But yes and no. Sorry.
Obviously, setting it in the 90s answers the question, where has she been the whole time? When did that decision get made, and how did the decision get made of when to set this movie before Iron Man 1?
If I'm being really honest, I don't know exactly when. Very early in the development process, I think we kind of seized on the idea of setting it in the 90s as a way to kind of let the character carve out her own space in the cinematic universe and give her a lot of thematic weight and significance to the universe. It's more or less this adventure that's going to inspire a lot of what we see in the MCU, and kind of being able to see those things in this movie that blossom in other movies and already have blossomed in other movies is one of the big excitements. And then also just the idea of the 90s as a period, which is something I don't think we've been able to explore a lot of. It's far enough in the rearview mirror that everyone's like, oh yeah, the 90s. I have memories of that era. But I haven't seen represented a lot on film, so being able to play in that sandbox is exciting. And do things like recreate a blockbuster, which was super fun to walk through and made me miss physical media in a way I didn't expect.
At the end of Infinity War, Fury, of course, uses the pager, the beeper, and we see her symbol. But, of course, while it's got a big reaction of, who is that? And a lot of excitement for Captain Marvel. It raised a couple questions of, why didn't he use the beeper for literally anything, for Ultron or the Battle of New York? And also, where has she been, and why this incident would he use the beeper? Or will those questions be addressed in Captain Marvel itself? Will we understand the thinking there, or is that something in Avengers 4 or later?
I think it's a combination of things. I think we will understand over the course of these movies why Fury makes the decisions that he does. He's always a mysterious guy, and he always has his own reasons. But hopefully, we can clarify some of that for the audience.
Is there anything in the comic book source material that was sort of essential to the blueprint that you guys were making for the movie?
Yeah. There's a run of comics by Kelly Sue DeConnick that really gets to the core of the character in a way that we thought really made us want to translate it to the screen. She really understood Carol and really made her modern and vibrant and cool in a way that she wasn't always written as. Sorry, that wasn't the greatest quote of all time. And a lot of great artists working with Kelly at that time. Zector Stoy was great. Jamie McKelvey was amazing. And it just sort of represented a vision of the character that we felt would translate to screen really easily. And Kelly's actually been working with us on the movie and has been very helpful and consulting with us, and shot a cameo the other day, which hopefully you guys can all pick out. But she kind of had a vision for Carol that leaned into her Air Force roots in a really cool way, and lean into the power of the character and the inspirational nature kind of at the core of Carol that we thought was super cool.
Is there a specific run or issues we should look at?
Everything Kelly Sue did was great. Some of that's based on Earth, some of that's based in space. It's all amazing. I'd say it's much more useful as reference for the character than for plot specifics, which isn't uncommon in these movies. Sometimes we go and say, we're going to make a movie about Civil War, even though that's a little bit of an adaptation of that storyline as well. Sometimes it's
this group of characters called the Guardians of the Galaxy seems cool. Let's put them on their adventure. And sometimes it's, this is what's cool about this character. There's this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, and that all kind of becomes the grist for the mill of filmmaking.
How much of, you're talking about Nick Fury's motivations, we're going to see a little more of that. What's the percentage of this is maybe a Nick Fury origin story?
There's a Nick Fury origin story in there. The movie is definitely called Captain Marvel. It becomes a two-hander for parts of it. So we sort of wanted to give the audience that kind of young Nick Fury origin story, as you put it, and it's all there, but hopefully in a way that complements Carol's adventure too.
Can you talk a little bit about what her specific powers are as compared to what she has in the comics?
Yes. By the end of this movie, we'll have seen the full run of powers out of Carol. So that's flight and strength and photon blasts. I think part of what made us excited about the character was that she was such a powerful character in the comic books and one of the most, if not the most, powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and seeing all that brought to bear is one of the big pleasures of the movie.
Marvel. On that note, I saw on the footage you just showed us, she had something on her head. Is that for where we see like the binary part of Carol?
Yes, for sure. Okay. And also one of the things we really loved from the comics was that mohawk look that pops up in that run a little bit.
Not even the mohawk. I was talking about she had it looked like little dots on her.
Oh yeah, she had little tracking markers.
Yeah,
there will be some visual effects there.
Yeah.
Marvel loves to base their stories in different genres. What genre is this other than a period film?
It feels weird calling it a genre, but the genre is 90s action movie. Like if you think about movies like RoboCop or Total Recall or Terminator 2 or Independence Day, I think there are common action movie threads that you can tease through those movies, which are what we're trying to pick up on in this movie.
You mentioned Blockbuster. Are there any other 90s nostalgia things like that we can look forward to seeing?
I'm hoping we can find some 90s music to pepper in.
I saw the Nine Inch Nails shirt.
Yeah, the Nine Inch Nails shirt was a cool one. I don't know if you guys saw the Rock the Vote posters, but they're up there. Part of the fun of the movie is finding those little touches that we can tickle the nostalgia bone with.
Will it have more of a soundtrack than a score, or?
I think it's going to be a mix of both. I don't think it's going to be an awesome mixed CD number one, but I think it will be fun to try to find those moments where the 90s music kind of touches off.
I'm going to put my vote in for Janet Jackson.
Yeah, if anybody has requests. This page just says Spin Doctors all the way down.
What do you know about Ben Mendelsohn's character in the Shadows?
Ben kind of plays the face of the Skrulls, the leader of the Skrulls, and that's Talos. Over the course of the movie, he'll shapeshift a little bit, so we'll get to see him in human form, as you saw in that sizzle. I think it's sort of fun to show off both the Skrulls' powers and Ben's range as an actor, because he's very different in all of those parts. It's been super fun to watch.
How do you spell his name?
Talos. Talos.
When we hear Skrulls, we from the comics, we think Secret Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been on your minds or discussed at all? Because I feel like after seeing this movie, everyone's going to be like, every character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and be like, okay, who's a Skrull?
That's cool, right? Yes, we talked about Secret Invasion. I wouldn't go into this movie saying, which one of these superheroes is a Skrull? Because it's kind of, Carol is more or less the first superhero to show up on Earth. But are we planting seeds for future movies? Always.
Do you play with the paranoia?
Yes.
How are you approaching Jude's character? Because obviously that character has a huge legacy in the comics. And how are you striking a balance and making him cool but not overwhelming the Captain Marvel that you're telling a story about?
I think Ryan and Anna and the writers we work with have really interesting takes on Jude's character. Jude does play a mentor type character, and I think it's a challenge, like you said, to make sure that the mentee part of that equation shines. But I think we've found a way into the character and kind of into their relationship that's really interesting and that people aren't going to expect.
Can we talk about Star Force? Which members we
there's a character named Bron Chars, played by Rune Temte, who's amazing. Atlas, Captain Atlas, played by Alhena Soto. You may recognize it from Anna and Ryan's movie Sugar, which was amazing, which I highly recommend. And Gemma Chan is playing Minerva. Yeah, she's called Dr. Minerva in the comics.
I was trying to remember. I just knew the name.
They're all super cool. They sort of form this outer space SEAL Team 6, and there's a lot of amazing action with all of them together in kind of the early going of the movie.
Will we see stuff like?
Oh yeah, and Korath. I'm so sorry. And Jaimin Hansu's character Korath, who he's reprising with Guardians 1. It's kind of, and Ronan, of course, we'll see as part of that Kree action early in the movie.
Will we see things like Sword from the Marvel comics, like the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D. and some of the other like cosmic things?
I don't think we have Sword in this movie, and this movie kind of takes place before Earth is aware of aliens or superheroes or any of that. So it would be pre-Avengers, pre-Sword, pre-Iron Man, pre-all of that. If I'm sorry, what's the second part of your question?
As far as like other cosmic elements, where we see, besides the Kree and the Skrulls.
It's really focused on the Kree-Skrull War. There are little elements there of other stuff and sort of blink and you miss it moments. But the Kree and the Skrull conflict is kind of the heart of the movie.
Why is Earth part of this Kree-Skrull War?
I think that's you're gonna have to watch the movie and find out. Sorry, man.
Well, just knowing that the Kree-Skrull War is something that goes back centuries. I mean, how do you how does the movie delve into that history, and how much of it do we see and put forward in exposition?
You'll see as much as is necessary to get Captain Marvel moving on her story.
Gotcha.
It's a conflict that's dealt with in a very real way. Hopefully, without overloading the audience with exposition, which we never want to do. But I think the thrust of the movie is to get our characters into the action as quickly as they can and get that story moving.
So is it kind of like a background conflict that the story happens to be taking place during, or?
Yeah, I mean it's an age-old conflict that our story picks up during. Yeah.
So speaking of the Kree-Skrull War, in the comic itself, it has political elements that are tying into sort of paranoia of investigating people and stuff. But through a superhero lens, will that be also in the movie?
If you're talking about kind of the Craddock anti-superhero act stuff from the comics, not really. There is a paranoia element that's a little bit different from what's in that specific storyline, but it's not kind of related to the anti-superhero who could be a Skrull comic stuff. And I'd say what I'd say about the Kree-Skrull War overall is it's much more of a kind of backdrop and mythological underpinning for the movie than it is a direct lift of that plotline like Civil War was.
In terms of using Coulson, who has a lot of future history with the Kree from TV, was that a challenge to figure out how all of that worked, or are you just kind of focusing on Coulson as he is?
The great part about it is we just get to focus on him as he is, so we don't need to worry about the stuff he's going to encounter later. There's lots of fun parallels, I'm sure, but we get to see Coulson in his first meeting with Nick Fury at a much younger age, where where the Kree aren't even part of his vocabulary yet.
In the footage, Nick Fury says he was ready to hang it up until he meets Carol. Sort of what can you say about that? Is that explored in the movie?
Yeah, we're meeting Nick Fury at a very interesting time in his life. It's kind of the mid-'90s. The Cold War is over. The War on Terror hasn't begun yet. It's a little bit of a slow period for worldwide espionage. And I think Fury's kind of wondering what his place in the world is in a world where he feels maybe a little obsolete. And then aliens come down from outer space.
Find his calling. Is Hydra sniffing around anywhere in this?
They always are.
You're not.
I wouldn't go into this movie expecting a bit of Hydra plot. I think the Skrulls kind of get to be their own thing.
Okay.
But if you remember your Marvel history, they're definitely there.
I see over there on the board, will we see the Supreme Intelligence in that version like that?
For sure. Part of the fun of the Kree world is establishing the Supreme Intelligence.
With the hair and everything?
I don't think you can do Hala without it.
That's hilarious.
So for the comics, looking back at Carol, she's had a very long, convoluted, and at times problematic history. She's also had multiple personas. She's been Miss Marvel, Binary, Warbird, Captain Marvel. And then also one thing I find really interesting about her is that she's actually been on the wrong side of history in both Civil Wars. And people she's not exactly the shining beacon of heroism some people would imagine her to be. So when you looking at all of that, how do you decide which elements of those to put in the movie?
It's the same process I think we go through with all of our movies, especially our origin movies. where we look at what storylines and make our characters bounce off each other in the most interesting way, what brings out the traits that we want the audience to see in these characters, and what makes us respond to those characters, and how do we get that across to the audience. And that always ends up being a mix of a lot of different stuff. I think we wanted to make Carol really inspirational, and not inspirational because she was perfect, but inspirational because she was flawed. And there's a lot of great stuff to draw from, both in Kelly Sue's run and elsewhere in the comics from that. Certainly some elements of her story needed an update for a modern audience, which they frequently do. And I'm hoping that the audience will be along for the ride for that and excited with what we did with these characters.
And just real quick follow-up on that. Will we in any way see you address like Miss Marvel, not the Kamala Khan, but how Carol used to be Miss Marvel?
No.
No bathing suit costume? That's like the Creed training costume or something?
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, no.
Since this deals a little bit with cosmic side of things, and we know James Gunn is kind of overseeing that in a way, is he at all involved in this?
I think he's read the script. We've talked to him about it a little bit. It takes place before a lot of what he's doing happens, so I'm sure the Skrulls will be a fun toy to play with at some point. But I think we've really been able to do our own thing. But we love it when James gives input for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about Anna and Ryan, just because it feels like director style comes through more and more with every movie I see. So what do they bring to this one?
All of these movies start from a place of looking at the character, finding out what makes them cool, and bringing that to the screen. And what's great about Anna and Ryan's movies is they're so character focused. They become these amazing character pieces. And they had a take on Carol and a take on the movie that brought all that to light in a great way. And so now they're really sinking their teeth, not just into the performances and not just into the character, but into the previs and the action and everything else that goes into making one of these movies. And they have amazing character instincts, amazing skills at getting performances out of actors, and really incredible action instincts and commercial instincts. So they're kind of bringing it all to the table, and we're lucky to have them.
This is obviously going to be the first female-led Marvel movie. Was there something about Carol that made her the character that kind of was going to take on that mantle and be this kind of reinvention of not just the MCU but also the first female Marvel superhero with a solo movie?
Sure. I think if you're going to put that on anybody's shoulders, Carol's are the strongest. She was always a character that excited us from the comic books. In all of the mythology and all the characters we have to draw from, she always kept rising to the top. Her powers are super cool. Her story is super cool. The world she gets to take part in is super cool. And that's sort of all what goes into the calculus of who's the next movie going to be.
Are you going to be using any of that sort of de-aging CG technology that we've seen in other Marvel movies for Sam or Clark or anybody else in the cast?
We will. We'll be de-aging Sam a little bit. We'll be de-aging Clark a little bit. Thankfully, both Clark and Sam look amazing, which is a big help for us. But yeah, there will be a little bit of that. It's certainly more shots than we've had to do in other movies. We've de-aged Robert, who looks amazing, and Kurt, who also looks amazing. We've been very lucky with the actors who have gone through this process. But this will be significantly more movie than we've ever done before, which is a fun challenge to have. But I don't think we could ever ask someone to step into Sam Jackson's shoes, so I'm glad we're doing it.
You're introducing Maria in this film and her daughter Monica. So is that obviously going to be a setup for the future?
I hope there's more story to tell with Monica. Certainly the movie leaves it open for that stuff. I think one of the things that was really fun about the stories that came together and the Monica relationship and the Maria relationship with Carol was being able to kind of tell this story of female friendship and intergenerational female friendships.
That's another part that really interests me is the fact that she's a mother, and you don't really see that in superhero films. So is that like a conscious decision to make her a mother and make that part of the story?
It was. I mean, it felt like a natural way into the Maria and Monica characters. It felt like a great way to give Carol a fun relationship that we haven't seen before. And it's not going to keep Monica from being along for the fun of this journey.
Can you talk about the character being played by Annette Bening?
No.
Okay.
Can I pass on that one? Pass.
There's a lot going on in the early 90s and the MCU with Claw stealing the vibranium. There's Howard Stark dying just like a month before that. Is any of that tied into this movie?
It's all happening. It's all happening in the background. Part of what we liked about the 90s, like I said, was kind of giving Carol her own turf. There are a lot of setups and there are a lot of connections to other things happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think what's most important is giving Carol space for her own adventure.
Can you specifically say what year this takes place?
I think we said... Actually, no. No, I can't.
Is there a unique MCU spin on the Skrulls as opposed to what we know from the comics with them?
There's always a spin on it. There's always a take. But I think what people know about the Skrulls is they're not to be trusted. They can shapeshift into anybody, and that makes them super dangerous. And those things I think you'll definitely find in the movie.
I didn't see the chin. Like, are you going away from like the Thanos chin?
Oh no, man, they got chins.
So they got the Thanos
yeah.
chin?
I don't know if they've got their own chins.
Okay.
We've been hearing a lot about how Captain Marvel is like the most powerful hero in the MCU. What does that mean? Does that mean she can just beat Thor and Hulk in a fight, or is there more to it than that? And can she beat Thor?
I know
and Hulk
better
in a
than
fight?
to wait in the who can beat who in a fight.
Well, if you're saying she's the most powerful, like I'm interested to hear just an explanation of what do you mean when you guys say that?
I think if you go back to the is anyone recording this? I think it was one of the most, if not the most. But part of the fun certainly is that she is superpowered and kind of able to use her powers on a scale we haven't seen before. What that means for the movie, I think we'll wait and see.
One of the things about the Marvel films, starting back with Iron Man, that makes them so enjoyable is that they do feel so grounded, even though they get so cosmic. And can you talk a little bit about how this film, how we're going to ground it in relationships, or how it's going to feel grounded, even though it's very fantastical?
Yeah, it's a little misleading because everything behind you is super fantastical. Yeah. And we didn't do a lot of concept art of all the practical locations we're shooting in. But that's about half the movie. Part of the fun of shooting in Los Angeles is we get to go real places, and really shoot there. And that's also part of what Ryan and Anna bring to the movie, and part of their aesthetic is grounding this kind of crazy outer space adventure in the reality of shooting in Los Angeles. And I think that's going to result in a really interesting, really cool aesthetic that you haven't seen in a Marvel movie before.
Is that why you guys decided to shoot here, not in Atlanta, primarily?
There's a few different reasons. One of them is not a lot of big movies shoot in LA anymore, so it weirdly feels like fresh territory for a movie like this. Mm-hmm. I think we really like the idea of shooting LA for LA, especially 90s LA for LA, which is so specific and cool. And part of it is that our crews have been traveling to Atlanta and traveling to the UK and traveling everywhere for a long time, and getting them home to see their families for a movie is not the worst thing in the world.
So there's a lot of parallels between Captain Marvel and Green Lantern, with being, in the Air Force, and she's going to space to joint fight with aliens, wearing like a green costume, get superpowers. Do you guys discuss that at all? Of maybe where they zig will zag or anything, or maybe a cautionary tale?
I'm sure we discussed it at some point. I think the characters are different enough and where they come from are different enough that it wasn't a huge thing. Certainly what we want to do with this movie is, and with every movie, is show the audience something they haven't seen before. And I think that means making it unique from Green Lantern and unique from the other Marvel movies.
How do you make Captain Marvel very powerful but not overpowerful for this cinematic universe? Because it's out, not just this film but everything.
Yeah, very good question. I don't know if I know the answer to that yet. I think part of, I can't really speak to the movies going forward. Part of the pleasure of this movie is going to be seeing Captain Marvel kick a lot of ass. Yeah. If we're lucky enough to be able to see more of her going forward, then I think we'll think about how to give her challenges that resonate with the audience still. Certainly, I don't think heading into other movies that you may see her in, you're going to be worried about her feeling overpowered.
We saw a shot. We'll say we saw a shot in the first reel of her with Cap. I can assume that's not in this movie.
That's not in this movie.
Okay.
Could you describe Captain Marvel's relationship with Marvel, Jude Law's character?
The relationship with Jude Law's character, it's a really mentor-mentee thing. He's kind of the leader of her squad on Hala, and teaches her in the ways of being a Kree warrior. And so over the course of their adventure, when she gets captured by the Skrulls, they get separated. He spends a lot of the movie trying to find her and trying to get her back and rescue her from the Skrulls. And it's a tender relationship, but it's very much mentor protege. And I think Carol still has a lot of the elements that made her human in her, which Jude Law's character both appreciates and is irritated by.
Do they have that kind of long history together? Like, is he part of that origin story?
Is he part of that origin story? I'm going to pass to Rue.
Okay. Keep asking those questions.
Did Brie actually go up in the fighter jets?
She totally did. She totally kicked ass. I would never do it in a million years. It looked so dangerous. Yeah, she really went up there, as did Lashana, as did Anna Bowden, our director. I got nervous and nauseous just like sitting through the briefings where they tell you what's going to happen up there. But she went up. They gave her a call sign. She went through the whole bit.
This is Marvel's first, modern female-led movie. Did you guys look at Wonder Woman at all and take any lessons from that or any inspirations?
What was so great about Wonder Woman was talking to female audience members afterwards about how they felt watching that movie. And a lot of the people I talked to just said, I've never felt like that watching a movie before in my entire life. That character resonated with me in ways I didn't even know a character could resonate with me as.
Well, correct.
They said it better than that. Which was great to hear, and kind of an amazing thing to I think it helped us understand how important movies like this are. So in terms of making the movie feel distinct, I think all these movies chart their own courses anyway, and sort of it's just like Green Lantern. We don't want to make a movie that people have seen before, but I think that means making the movie feel distinct, not just from other female-led movies, but from all the other Marvel movies as well, which is something we try to do on every movie. So it wasn't a new challenge necessarily, but it was one I think we were extra excited for because of the nature of what this movie means to be.
Was there any challenge in the fact that this is a prequel essentially to the rest of the MCU, knowing that Carol is still going to be alive after Infinity War? Is there anything there you guys worried about, thematically or dramatically?
No. I mean, sorry, can you
just
repeat that
the
question
movie's a prequel, and we have
Yeah.
20 movies to take place after this. I was wondering, knowing that she's around and knowing that she's still alive at the end of this, not this movie, but
How do you give her stakes?
Yeah, how do you give it stakes and other things?
I mean, I think the audience knows enough by now that we're probably not going to kill off an origin character in an origin movie. So I don't think that's a huge leap that she's going to be alive at the end of the movie. And a lot of the stakes in the movie aren't centered on Carol necessarily. Okay. I think the way to approach movies like this isn't necessarily who's going to live, who's going to die, but what do you want the audience to get out of it? What's the journey you want them to go on? Can you get them invested in this character? And I think hopefully the answer to those questions is yes.
All the films in the MCU have that kind of unique MCU feel. But then we have like Guardians, Thor Ragnarok, and very, very funny, more emphasis on humor than action, or, well, not action, but more emphasis on humor than seriousness. Then you have Civil War and Winter Soldier that were just really heavy, very dramatic, with just a sprinkle of humor. So where does Captain Marvel, we're going to be more related to?
It's kind of somewhere in between. Carol in the comics is a really funny character in her own way, in a way that doesn't feel like Doctor Strange, in a way that doesn't feel like Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr., that gets to be her unique voice. And I think that's the voice we tried to get across, which isn't Joke a Minute, Rocket Raccoon, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is super funny, and isn't super grounded, kind of heavy, as some of our other movies have been. I think it inhabits a place a lot like Doctor Strange that takes the movie and the stakes of the movie pretty seriously, but allows the characters to have fun within it.
Don't necessarily expect huge details, but to kind of get back to the stakes question, what are kind of the stakes? Are we talking about the decimation of the entire universe? Are we talking about mostly personal stakes? Kind of what are they protecting?
Well, like all Marvel movies, it's a mix of both. And I think we'll be rooting along the course of this movie for Carol to reconnect with her humanity, and that really is the stakes of the movie.
What is Overworld?
What's Overworld?
Well, it's the title of the working title of this production. But
Open World.
Or Open World, sorry.
What is Open World?
What is Open World?
It doesn't really, I'm sorry. It doesn't mean much. Very early on in these processes, we have to pick those titles. And at the time, we were still in very early days developing the movie, so it was sort of like an open world video game in a lot of ways. Like it was a movie where that could be a lot of different things. What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. As far as like the space battles and things, are we looking for like, is it gonna be something more like darker, like a Rogue One? Like, are we gonna see like a war, or is it gonna be more of like operatic big space, you know, kind of shiny and clean with the explosions instead of like down and dirty?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that yet. It's going to be PG-13 for whatever that's worth. I think the hope is to show the stakes of galactic war, and but not in a way that's going to detract from the fun of the movie. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's the best I can do right now.
Were there qualities that you guys immediately recognized in Bree's performance and interpretation of the character that affected the way you went in the film, and the way that, like, there's degrees of separation between Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr.? You know, he owns that character. Did you find that with Bree too? Is there ways that she influenced the way the movie unfolds?
With all of these movies, the voice of the actor can't help but come through. And with Ryan and Anna's help, and sort of and kind of guided by the script, I think they've found a version of Carol that's really cool. That's not exactly Carol from the comic books, and not even exactly the Carol that you read when you read the script page. That becomes kind of their own unique creation. That's really cool and really interesting. And Bree certainly has done everything she possibly can to make the character feel as real as possible. I think she spent more time at the stunt gym training for fights than any actor I've ever worked with, which has been amazing to watch. She's gone up in fighter jets. She's hung out with the Thunderbirds. She's going to do a lot of her own stunts in this movie, and a lot of her own fighting, which you saw a little of that behind the scenes reel. Not a ton of actors would be doing those wire gags, would be doing that stuff for real. I did that stuff earlier today because I randomly stopped by the stunt gym, and it takes a lot out of you, man. It's really hard. I do recommend it if you get the chance. Stop by Stage 8. They'll put you up on wires. It's super fun, but it's not easy. I was pulling this out to show you guys a video, but maybe another time.
Is there anything you can tell us about any of the specific weaponry here?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Star Force, like any awesome outer space fighting force, has their own kind of unique skills and weapons. You know, Korath has his awesome swords. Bronchar is kind of a bigger, stronger guy who fights with his fists. Atlas is more of a marksman and has those two pistols. Minerva is the sniper of the group who kind of gets to be a little bit of a remove. And Yanra, there's sort of their own other powers and sprinkled throughout. Sorry, did I talk about German swords? Yes. Okay, good.
For Carol, could you talk about her personality a little bit? Like, where does she get her morality from? What's her motivation in the movie? What's her baggage? You know, what's her flaw?
I mean, a lot of the movie is about Carol not remembering her human past. When we meet her at the beginning of the movie, she believes that she is a Kree, and kind of has been inducted into their army. She's an amazing, powerful person. She loves being a Kree. And then over the course of her adventure, realizes there's more to her story than that. So the movie kind of becomes her unraveling the root of her own origin and the root of her own mystery.
She believes she's a Kree, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like a brainwashing type thing? Like,
that's from the early Ms. Marvel comics.
Is that like she... Okay. No. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying that she's like under the belief that that's how we meet her.
Yes. When we meet her, she believes she is a Kree on Hala.
Like Top Gun, they shot a lot of the air... like the air sequences actually in the air. Like, are you trying to go more for something like that? Because this is 90s action. Or is a lot of it going to be like CG and on stage with green screen?
We went to Edwards. We shot some practical stuff for our air-to-air sequences. A lot of that will end up being CG just by the nature of the beast. But to the extent that we could shoot practically, we did. And even the stuff you shoot practically informs the visual effects of it all so much that it's immensely helpful. And the Air Force has been amazing about granting us their assets and their hangars and their airplanes to use. It's been an incredible experience.
Where else have you guys shot in LA? Or where will you?
Let's see. We shot on that one Rando strip mall that you guys saw in the paparazzi photos. We're heading up to Simi Valley soon to shoot an aquarium up there. We shot at this other Rando strip mall in the valley, which is where that Blockbuster Video got built. We shot up at Shaver Lake, which is outside Fresno, and at Edwards Air Force Base, which is a couple hours away. We shot in the Lucerne Valley for some of that desert look. It's been a lot in LA and then a lot around LA.
In the clip we saw, Carol at one point she had on like her suit with a black strip on her chest, is that for CG for the symbol?
She with a black strip on her chest. Oh, I think that's just her, and the chest plate comes on separately as a piece of the costume. So she sits down and does interviews.
Yeah.
It's not the most comfortable thing in the world to sit down in, so that just comes off.
Okay.
Did you mention we'd be seeing Jan Rog in this film at all?
Jan Rog does pop up, yeah.
Okay.
He's an important part of the mythology.
Like you said, her powers, when you said that they're like she's the most powerful, so we'll see I'm trying to think of like the most like cinematic thing that we've seen in the universe is probably like Thor, as far as like showing off like they blasted all the aliens in the Avengers. Are we gonna see things that are like bigger than that? Like
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Can we expect spaceship battles?
Yes. Any other requests? We got like 25 shooting days left.
Time travel?
Time travel, okay.
Well, particularly the character that's that powerful is also keeping her vulnerable. Did you have to put a lot of thought into figuring out how to keep her, keep those kinds of stakes with her?
We did, and I wouldn't say she's that powerful for the entire movie, and a lot of the movie is kind of about her understanding her true power. So it kind of becomes an issue for more at the end of the movie and more going forward than it does for this movie.
You said that Nick Fury is kind of going through a slow period in his career, and then he comes across Captain Marvel. Like, what are you able to say? What his reaction is? Does he see her as a threat?
I think he reacts very much as any of us would. First, seeing a person in a teal green Star Force outfit say, "I'm an alien from another planet, and there's Skrulls infiltrating your world." Okay. But very quickly, he encounters the Skrulls on his own and sort of realizes that he's wrapped up in something much bigger than he could have ever imagined.
Can you say how Carol and Nick Fury's relationship compares to Nick Fury's relationship with the other superheroes we've seen?
I think it benefits and in its uniqueness by having Carol be the first superhero he's ever really encountered or heard of in his life. She sort of gets to be the window to him for this entire bigger universe. So he's a little less of the I know everything there is to know Nick Fury that we've seen in the later movies, and a little bit more perhaps open to new ideas.
Is this where we learn what happened to his eye?
Pass.
How does it seems like there's some big climactic stuff happening in this movie? How does nobody in Earth and Iron Man, the events of Iron Man or Battle of New York, know about what has happened? The big stuff that's happening in this movie.
I mean, I could answer that, but then we'd have to get into what all the big stuff is. I don't know. That feels like a wait and see. Okay. Sorry. Then you guys have asked about the cat. I'm really surprised.
I was just about to ask about the cat.
No, it's too late. It's too late.
Tell us about the cat.
There's an awesome cat in this movie named Goose. It's kind of a take on
Top Gun reference?
Yeah. It is a Top Gun reference, kind of a take on Chewie from the comics. Goose is played by a team of 4 cats who all have their own specialty. There's Reggie, there's Archie, there's Rizzo, and there's Gonzo. They're an A team of cats who can all do one trick, because you can't teach cats to do that. I learned all about cats, shooting with cats over the course of this movie. So one of them is like the face cat, who's the pretty cat. That's Archie. That's Reggie. One of them's the holding cat who you hold and can be held. One of them's like the nuzzling cat who will walk up to your leg and nuzzle it. And one of them's like the cat who will paw you, who's a jerk. I think that's Rizzo.
I own all those cats.
If you told me before this movie started that I would be auditioning cats to play the role of Goose, I would not have believed you.
Were there any more Top Gun references, or does it end?
There's probably 1 or 2 other ones sprinkled in there, ones that I only register subconsciously now.
We see the cat in a costume.
Oh, the mask?
Yeah.
Maybe, that'd be cool.
Can you do a cat on our screen?
Oh man, I'd love to. People are gonna love Goose.
Cats get nothing.
It just felt like one of those things from the comics that we couldn't not do.
On the comics in this last page over here, there's a big tentacle monster. Is that something that's we're gonna see something from?
That's a version of the Supreme Intelligence, and the Supreme Intelligence is part of the movie.
Oh, over here?
Oh, sorry, that tentacle monster. Sort of like, we sort of like, no.
What can you say about Ronan's role in the movie?
Just like it's an earlier version of Nick Fury, it's kind of an earlier version of Ronan, who has not become the radical zealot that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. So he has his own station in Kree society on Hala, and his own role to play in the Kree military that intersects with Star Forces in an interesting way.
Will we be, will there be sort of we'll leave him in a place that we'll kind of see how he gets to where we see him next? Is that big enough?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, I think just like there's a Nick Fury origin story buried in this movie, buried a little bit deeper is the Ronan origin story.
So there you have it. Interview with Jonathan Schwartz. Today on slashfilm.com, you can find all of our coverage from the Captain Marvel set visit. That includes all the interviews you heard today here, but also interviews you didn't hear here, including directors Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden talking about the film, Jude Law, who plays Captain Marvel's mentor, and some other cast members as well. So I would recommend going to slashfilm.com, checking that out. As always, you can find more of my work on slashfilm.com and at slashfilm on all social media. You can find this podcast published every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, all those popular podcast apps. Please send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. And go to our iTunes page, write us a 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, if they step off, then that's good. Then it's done. But they don't seem to want to step off. And so we'd be scrolling.